I'm going to show you how to do finger knitting, which is a fun way to knit with just your hands, no knitting needles required. Makes this kind of narrow, squishy fabric. You're limited to 4 stitches because you've got 4 fingers to use. This one I did with 3 yarns held together, which is kind of fun. And today I'm going to do one with some t-shirt yarn. You can buy t-shirt yarn or you can cut up old t-shirts to make it. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold this in my left and use my right hand to manipulate. I usually start just by pinching the end of the yarn between my thumb and the rest of my hand just to hold it in place. And then I wrap, so I go behind a finger, in front of one, behind one, in front, all the way around when you get to your pinky, and then in front, behind, in front. So at this point I have 1 piece of yarn on each of my fingers. Notice I'm not pulling it really tight. That tends to be a thing people feel good doing, but it's not as comfortable and it makes it a little harder. So I'm going to need to do this again since I'm starting. So around my index finger, in front, behind, in front, and around my pinky, in front, behind, in front, and now I've got 2 loops on each finger. Now I'm ready for the next step. I'm going to pick up the lower loop and lift up and over. So it helps it's not tight. It also can help to bend your finger. And move on, up and over. It's always the lower one that lifts over the upper one. And here I've got 1 loop on each finger. If this one's tight, you can pull in the yarn a little bit. If it feels good, you can kind of push them down, but that's optional. Now I no longer need to hold the tail. I can let that go, and I'm going to do it again. So my yarn goes behind my pointer finger, in front, behind, all the way around my pinky, in front, behind, in front. So now I've got 2 loops on each finger. It's time for the next step of lifting the lower ones up and over. Doesn't feel like I'm working tight, but I'm having a little trouble lifting them up and over, so I'm going to try to do it even looser this time. Behind and front, behind, all the way around. You can see I'm leaving a little extra space. It helps if you spread your fingers out, then you have to leave a little extra space and you can pull them in for the next step. So lower loop, up and over, lower loop, up and over, all the way across. Now what's happening here is I'm knitting what's called stockinette stitch on the back of my hand. This is the reverse stockinette side. So if you're familiar with knit and purl, we also call that the purl side of the fabric. This is the knit side, and that's going to look really familiar like you see on your t-shirts and sweaters and things. You can keep going till it's as long as you want it to be. I'm going to do just a little bit more in case you want to do it with me. So behind and front, behind and all the way around. Remember to leave it loose. In front, behind and front. Up and over, up and over, up and over. You can give it a little bit of tug. That'll happen with gravity, but it can help just to see how long it's getting. Behind and front, behind and all the way around. Up and over. Now, whenever you decide you're done, you need to take it off, and it's really important that the last loop that you have is going to be the one that's attached to the yarn. The way I've been doing it's my index finger. It's fine if it's a different one on yours. You just want to tug on the yarn to feel what that is. So to finish it, I'm going to take a loop off 1 finger and move it to the next finger and do my normal up and over that I do when I have 2. And then I'll do that again. Move it up and over. It's really important then when you're down to 2, you move it so that the one attached to the yarn is not the lower one, which is what I did here. I actually want to move this way so it's the upper one, because that means that's the loop I'm going to end up with. And you can tell because this is attached here. Then you can cut your yarn, or I actually didn't bring scissors with me, so I'm just going to take the whole ball of yarn, make the loop big and pull it through. We call this tying off, and that keeps it from unraveling. Then you'll need to do something with the tails. So depending on what you're doing, maybe you're going to tie them together to make some kind of a bracelet or a headband or a necklace. Otherwise, you're going to weave them in. And I usually do that on the background here. You can use a big needle or just your hands and tuck it in underneath the loops. I usually go in a bit of a diagonal motion because I find that stays in well and keeps it stretchy. And then if you want to be really secure, you can turn back and head down in the opposite direction. So I start at this corner, I'm heading back there. If there's some extra, you can cut it off. So I just made a little rectangle. I don't know it's going to be terribly useful, but I could probably find some usefulness for it. Maybe I know somebody with a doll or stuffy that needs a little blanket or a cushion. You can certainly keep going as long as you want to. You could finger knit an entire ball of yarn if you really get into it, and then maybe even sew it together into something else at the end. All right, I hope you had thought this was fun. Here again is another one with 3 different yarns held together, which is a nice thing to do if you only have smaller yarns or just to have fun blending colors.